Now for our interview with former Area 51 CIA employee T.D. Barnes. I started by asking him when he first went to work for the CIA.
That was actually in 1964 when I got out of the military. I'd already been working for some with the CIA, and I didn't have any problem getting assignment to Nevada. And they had what's called Seven Sisters, which was radar site. One radar site was 45 miles from Area 51. And I was initially assigned at that where we were tracking the X-15, XB-70, lunar landing vehicles, that sort of thing. But it was also tracking what was going on out at Area 51 as one of their Seven Sisters. And then I went from there out to Area 51. That's where I finished up my career.
So you left the Army and then went to work directly for the CIA?
Directly to work on the NASA High Range. And I was sitting there, I was representing the CIA. I was a contractor. And but we were tracking what was flying out at Area 51 plus what NASA was flying on the High Range, X-15, that sort of thing.
And in reading your bio, it says that you were working at one point on a project to have spacecraft be nuclear powered, so to go on extra long missions such as to Mars.
Yeah, that was a NERBA project. When I left the NASA High Range, I spent about 3 months on the NERBA project developing a nuclear rocket engine to go to Mars.
So we had a Mars. I think it'd be surprising for people to know that we had a Mars project that long ago.
Yeah, in fact, we developed the engine. It should have taken us to Mars in, I think, they figured 500 days. We had the engine and we had the missiles, but there's no way you could use a nuclear launch off of the planet, because of the radioactivity. But we've had the missile. We've had that capability ever since even probably late 59 or so.
What years were you working on that?
That would be 1967, 68.
So we'd obviously been to the moon and already looking at the next destination, and we were looking at Mars, and the thinking was that the most efficient way to get to Mars is through a nuclear reactor actually on board?
Yeah, the NERBA engine, they developed it for the Saturn V rocket.
Mm-hmm. But you were saying in order for it to launch, it required nuclear to launch?
No. We developed the engine, but there's no way that environmentally you could use it on Earth. You could use it if you launched from say a space station or something like that. You could, but that's still a problem that we got is using nuclear power to launch a missile or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. So there's never been, we have nuclear submarines and we have nuclear aircraft carriers, but we've never had any type of nuclear aircraft. Is that correct?
No, we've actually had a nuclear bomber. They experimented with bombers out in the Nevada test site, and I think we don't hold me to it. I think about 5 different flights or so we made had a nuclear reactor powering the nuclear bomber.
Huh.
It wasn't practical though.
Not practical because why?
Oh, the weight was involved. There's so much weight involved with anything nuclear, and that was a handicap as for the bombers.
So when people talk about current projects to go to Mars, whether it be SpaceX talking about it or the U.S. military, are they talking about nuclear powered or not?
Not necessarily. They developed I would suggest that they would, but that's not what they're talking about. They do talk about that. I think that's back where they have revisited some of the things that the NERBA project did. And we do have, in the back burner, we've got that capability. But they'd have to have a spaceport in orbit to ever use it, just because of the radiation that you would release during launch.
And what, were you dealing with superconductors and some of these newer ideas with nuclear energy? What do they call room temperature? What was your
metamaterials and room temperature?
Yeah, room temperature.
Superconductors.
Superconductors.
No, Not at that time, no.
So that came up later, you think?
That came later, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would actually bring the engine off the test stand. We had a test stand. We actually worked underground. And that's where a lot of the story come out about underground stuff in Nevada. Our test stand, we had the reactor sit with the rear end into the air, and so that it wasn't trying to go anywhere. And we would actually have all of our instrumentation stuff below it, underground. So we'd go underground and walk about almost half a mile. And then here's these big rooms and stuff with all your electronics in it, but the reactor's up above us.
We've set off a lot of nuclear bombs in Nevada, right?
Oh yeah, over 1,000.
Over 1,000 and are these bombs equivalent to Hiroshima type bombs in size?
They're much larger.
Much larger.
Much larger. Yeah. What the ones we detonated in Japan just baby compared to what we developed later.
And what's the closest that you've been to one of these tests?
I participated in 5 different tests, and we would go in. We'd be probably about 10 miles from ground zero, and you could actually see mine were all underground, the one I worked on, and you'd actually see the ground rippling as it came across, and you'd feel a little shaking and what have you, and see the dust rising, just like dropping a rock into water. The ripples it makes. That's the same thing you see on the ground from underground tests.
So we also do above ground tests, though.
I did. They had stopped all the time I got out there.
But they had been doing them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And is it your understanding that we don't do them anymore because we don't consider them safe?
No, the treaties we got with Russia and everyone that we no longer. Well, I think we stopped their tests in the 90s. Was the last nuclear test. And
talk a little bit about, there's a nuclear waste dump site around there, right?
Yeah, we've been trying to get one at the Yucca Mountain. It's for all your waste from all your electrical reactors
from around the country.
Yeah.
Right. It's not safe to be keeping all the waste at the various reactors. So the idea was we were going to put it all in one safe place, and we built this incredible underground nuclear waste facility that then was never used. Am I right?
Not yet. It's political. It's purely political. I mean, it's in the best place in the world. It's right in the middle where we had atomic bomb tests. So what better place could you have?
And am I right that it's 100% built?
Yeah. Yeah. We got 5 miles of tunnel. Oh. I've been back in there.
And at what cost was that built at?
All billions of dollars. I think we got at least $30 billion into it.
Yeah. It's one of the biggest pink elephant, or whatever you call it, white elephant projects in the history of the year. We like to complain about the California bullet train here, but this one takes the cake, right?
The only people that oppose is politicians. The people want it.
Well, but I thought, didn't it actually go to a vote of the people in Nevada? No?
I don't think it did.
But it was Nevada somehow. I thought it was the Nevada government somehow, state government, that somehow prevented it from happening.
Yeah, they have. Yeah, the state government has, yes.
Yeah.
But like you ask the people on the street, they say, yeah, bring it on. And
the state government was perfectly fine with $30 billion being spent to build the thing, but then, God forbid, you put any actual waste in it.
It's actually, but it's been a political football for years and years.
Is it still possible that it's going to be used? Is there any movement afoot that they're actually going to use it for waste?
They try to get refunded. They get a little bit of funding for it every year, but not enough to put it in production. We got in trouble, the government did. They shipped from plutonium here to Nevada unannounced toward the end of last year. And there were several months before anyone knew about it, and their politicians are ready to stink about it. Because they just brought it in and
where did it come from?
I'm not even sure, Tennessee or someplace like that.
How many
And,
nuclear reactors does the U.S. energy reactors does the U.S. have right now?
I don't know. We got quite a few of them.
They seem to be
I'm not
closing
sure.
more than opening.
Yeah. As we go to solar power and the wind power, it's I don't know whether it's shut down that many nuclear or not, and I really hate to see them shut them down because your solar power and your electrical power, once the government stops subsidizing the companies that's producing it, the price you can't afford it. It's not going to work.
Yeah, and nuclear, when you got everybody all worked up about climate change, nuclear is clean energy, right?
It's clean energy, and but that's one of the biggest ripoffs they're going is your solar power right now. The companies are all getting paid by the government to do it.
Yeah,
And they just flat, they'll just flat tell you once the government checks stop, we stop.
yeah. Yeah, I don't understand why they're not embracing nuclear. It really is a serious contradiction to say that you want clean energy, but you're opposed to nuclear.
Yeah, it's perfected business. It's and there's this works around nuclear. We're not scared of it. We respect it, but it's not some evil thing that a lot of people try to make it out to be. I've been down to ground zero after a test within an hour.
After an underground test.
Yeah, because the way they set them off, everybody would have experiments underground, and they go in and recover the experiments. And of course, you weren't getting into the radiation area, and but you could go back down into ground zero an hour after a test, and just because they sealed off the radiation.
So talk about Area 51 and how you originally got assigned there and who you were working for.
I was with the CIA Special Projects, Science and Technology Division. We were developing stealth for the A-12 spy plane that was going to replace the U-2. And I went in as radar, that sort of thing. And one of the biggest things is we were getting our hands on a lot of Russian radar. And we were using those so we could determine how well we were doing with our stealth projects. So that was basically my thing was Soviet radar and that sort of thing.
So was Area 51 kind of the original secret projects location?
I'm sorry?
Was Area 51 kind of the original secret projects location for the military?
Area 51 started out CIA. It was strictly a CIA operation. And it went over to the Air Force in 1979. And that's when the CIA got their wings clipped because of the Vietnam War, and they were, keeping track of protesters, that sort of thing. And the government realized all of a sudden that the CIA had a station in Nevada, and you're not allowed to have a CIA station in the United States. So we had to turn it over to the Air Force.
And what years were you actually there?
Actually, on site was 1968 to about 75. Mm-hmm. I was with the project starting in 1960, even though I wasn't physically there. That's one thing a lot of people don't know is less than 5% of the people that worked on projects at Area 51 ever knew the CIA was even involved. It was so compartmentalized, and or even what the project was. You'll still hear people that worked out there that talk about the SR-71. Well, the SR-71 was never, ever at Area 51. The A-12, CIA's A-12 was, and the other two Blackbirds, the M-21, which was mothership for the drone, and then we had the YF-12, which carried missiles. But even the people working out there didn't necessarily know what they were, who they were working for, or exactly other than just what their assignment was.
And why was it transferred to the Air Force as opposed to any of the other military divisions?
The Air Force was always involved. They worked for the CIA. You always had our commander out there was always Air Force, but they didn't report up to chain of command. They reported strictly to CIA. Air Force worked with CIA, And the reason for that was to keep some general, coming in and pulling rank and saying, well, what are you guys doing out there? If you didn't have a need to know, you didn't get in there. I don't care who you were. So we had a general started out as Colonel Jack Ledford was at CIA, attached to CIA, and that's who the Air Force reported to. And he reported directly to the CIA director, but the Air Force itself was out of the loop. And that's how we kept it secret. No one knew about Area 51 until the Air Force took over in '79. And sure enough, the minute they took over, word got out, and that's where a lot of the mystery came in then. People wondered, what in the world has the CIA been doing for 20 years that we don't know about?
What about Plant 42 in Palmdale? What happens there versus what happens at Area 51?
Palmdale, they build all your stuff at other places, like Palmdale would be Lockheed. Nothing is built at Area 51. It's brought there to test. So, like Boeing does their testing in Seattle, Lockheed did theirs at Palmdale. And but that's where they do all the constructions and then bring it to Area 51, and that's where they show what you got.
So, sorry, you're saying it's built at Plant 42 and then brought to Area 51?
Yeah, they build all the planes, like the A-12 spy plane. We haul those in boxes 35 foot wide and 105 foot long, 18 trips, all the way from Burbank to Area 51. Mm-hmm. But that's but everything is built elsewhere and brought there.
Mm-hmm. And what about where is it originally designed?
Whatever company is doing it, like Boeing or Northrop or Lockheed, they do their own designing. Mm-hmm. And what they'll do, and that's part of the secrecy of Area 51. Say you got Boeing, I'm going to use those for example, and Lockheed. Both of them are competing for a government contract, say with the Navy. They build whatever they're building, and then they bring it to Area 51, and that's where we had all the equipment stuff. It's a laboratory. And that's where the Navy would come in. They would be a customer. The other people would be a customer. Everybody's customers come in, and then we use our equipment, our technology, and that's where they put the stuff through the paces to see if it do what they said it would. Mm-hmm. And one of the secrecy was, say, Boeing just wanted to test something. They don't want Lockheed knowing about it. So it's hush hush, and then vice versa. So no one talks about what the others got out there.
And this is highly classified, top secret stuff. Help walk us through like exactly how secret it is. I read in your bio how even after you left Area 51, you were still getting visits from the FBI.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, 5 years for 5 years after I left, we would routinely, and even the say the pilots that was flying for the CIA, they couldn't go to Vietnam for I think it's 5 years. They no one knew what they had done. So they didn't want them mixing. They went back into the Air Force, and no one knew what they did. It's still that secret. But most of the secrecy is free. We were doing mostly stealth. That was the big end game of stealth, and we didn't want the enemy knowing anything about our stealth. That's what the secrets were. Those compound reviews.
So you wrote that the FBI was checking in, asking neighbors, et cetera, to make sure that you were financially sound, not subject to potential blackmail, not desperate, et cetera.
Blackmail.
Yeah.
Blackmail. That's what it is. They're always afraid of it. And like when they interviewed the people to work out there, the wife could get you disqualified quicker than anything. If she drank too much, she talked too much, anything to keep maintain the secrecy. So the families were.
You're very fortunate. You had a wife that didn't talk too much.
That's right. But she was the old ham. Even while I was at, I was always in something secret even before I came out to Area 51. So she's used to it. And but otherwise, they were handpicked. The families were looked at almost as strongly as we were.
So with all this secrecy and assurance of secrecy, both before they let you in to begin with and even once you're out, so does that mean that the government is very good at keeping secrets?
very good. It is amazing how well we kept the secrets out there. And you don't realize that. I'll give you an example. I worked a lot with the SR-71 guys, which were all Air Force. No Air Force pilot ever flew the CIA's plane, ever. They flew the trainer, but not the other plane. And no CIA ever flew the SR-71. Just different. So anyway, I was working with a group, a couple of generals and colonels, and we got a rosters of everyone that ever flew in the U-2 plane or any of the Blackbird planes. Because you have people who claim that they flew in them, in their older age. Well, we was doing a project about 3 months ago, and trying to figure out who all qualified in the planes, but never went operational. And so the CIA has just been releasing declassified documents like crazy. Well, one of the guys who came across the CIA document, just been released, had this guy there on his 3rd flight with Blackbird. He's not on the roster. So they was all wondering what it was, so they contacted me, and I said, well, that was the base commander at Area 51. That was his pseudonym. And they did, the SR-71 guys 3 months ago, only then did they learn that we used pseudonames back in the 60s. The CIA did. We got our names off of gravestones in Europe. But these guys, I couldn't believe they didn't know that. Because we've associated it for years and years. But it just, I talked about it.
What about, do they, based on your information, do little tests where they might plant some false information just to see if it leaks out?
I probably would. We were so conscious of security back then, and our kids and wives didn't know where we worked or what we did. My wife found out in 2009 where I worked and what I did. They flew us back to CIA headquarters, and that's when we could tell them.
Because she was in Las Vegas at the time?
Yes.
And you were being flown from. Sorry?
She'd take me and put me on a plane. I'd leave, come back Friday night. She had no idea where I'd been. And it's when I wrote my book, is when she found out I did the flights on the out of Biggs Air Force Base to Cuba. And that's the first time she had heard about that.
Wow.
And she got up in the morning, went to work, came back that night. I'd been to Cuba and back, and she didn't know it.
So I listened to a couple of Bob Lazar interviews, and I'm sure you're familiar with that name.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So is there any doubt that he worked at Area 51?
No, he never worked there.
No?
No.
Well, he claims to have worked there in the late, was it late 70s or late 80s?
Late 80s.
Late 80s, yeah.
Yeah, if you know how that works out there, they of course, everybody commuted in there. Even in my day, except our group that was working on the CIA directly, everybody else had to fly, couldn't even live in the state. They had to commute in. It was required. And first of all, you had to be on a manifest before you ever get on the plane. And then the plane would be met by security, and they check your badges and again, a manifest on the other end. And a lot of the security guards still live here in Vegas. They've been part of the Roadrunners, a lot of the people. And they say absolutely that Lazar was never there.
Wow. And these are guys that worked there in the late 80s. Because, I mean, I've heard Lazar tell his story. He told it on another podcast recently, the Joe Rogan Show, and he goes into great detail, and he talks about the flight that you're talking about now. He talks about the flight from Vegas to this secret place and going back and forth, every week. And some of the tests that he had to pass in order to work there, and then some of the things that he worked on.
Yeah, exactly. And he talked about working at Papoose Lake. Believe me, there was absolutely nothing there. He talked about Site 4. There is a Site 4. That's where we had all of our Soviet radar. We actually had a little landing strip. It was one of the remote sites, but it was not at Papoose Lake. And so he picked up on a lot of stuff, that he's heard about it and knows about what we call the Janet flights. So he can make a good story, but none of the security people, no one knew him.
Well, and is it also fair to say, based on the amount of secrecy and classifiedness of everything, that it makes no sense that a guy like that would come out and say the things that he said?
No, and he couldn't have kept it secret. And other people would have, by now would have come out and said, "Yeah, we knew the guy, and he's kind of crazy or this or that." But absolutely, I'm president of Roadrunners, which is all the guys that worked out there, your contractors, your pilots, engineers, everybody, and we get you. No one had ever heard of him.
So the fact that you worked there is not itself secret, obviously.
No, it's not secret.
And
it's what's going on out there now. That's the CIA declassified what we did, and like I say, in 2009 is when we could actually say, tell our wives where we worked and what we did. That's when they really released us to talk about it. But we've been having reunions since 1972.
So, no, I'm asking, as you sit here today, there's still projects that you worked on that you cannot speak about. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, and a lot of them I wouldn't know about either. Once you leave there, I don't care who you are, unless you got to need to know, you're out of the loop. Mm-hmm. You can speculate, and you see the results later, like the B-2 bomber. We know it was out there, and the F-22 and your drones and stuff. But at the time they're doing it, you don't know about it.
So you're someone who spent a lot of time at Area 51. You spent a lot of time in classified projects, top secret projects. Let's now kind of fold that in with these Tic Tac UFOs that people have been talking about, the USS Nimitz incident, and what these things are. The Navy has confirmed that the video is real. They've confirmed that the pilots did, in fact, encounter something. So but they say they don't know what it is. We've had at least one guest on, Mike Turber, saying that they do know what it is. This is top secret U.S. technology, and they were testing this technology over the waters and perhaps testing the U.S.'s own surveillance system. But this is super secret U.S. technology, incredible technology, where aircraft can go underwater, above water, and go at supersonic speeds.
Yeah. I suspect this has something to do with it, where there's swarm. They're going down with swarms and stuff. They can make the enemy think there's any number of ships or planes that they want to. And this goes right back to Project Palladium. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not. But we were trying to determine, we knew the Russians had a new radar, and we need to know whether or not it would be able to pick up the A-12 that we were building to replace the U-2. And so Project Palladium we knew that they had this because it was getting reflections off of this new radar inside of Russia. They were tracking their ICBMs, and we were picking up the reflections. So we had a C-97 that was flying out of a big Air Force base, and this is where I got involved with the agency. I was next door at Fort Bliss, just side by side. But I was advanced into this sort of thing. So I flew on, or actually traveled on two of these flights with, had this ghost plane that we would fly at Cuba. And once they turned on the radar, we had a submarine sitting right off the islands. And once they started tracking us, we would release balloons. In them, they had different sizes. Everything was calibrated. We'll call them spears or devices. Anyway, we were seeing if they could pick those up. And we would just fade away and let them pick up the stuff we were releasing for the submarine. And we was able to tell which one they could track. And what it told us was the capability of the radar. And what we learned on it was that, yes, they would be able to track the plane. We never flew over Russia again. But the point is that if we could electronically make that radar think it's tracking one plane, 10 planes, 20 planes, whatever we wanted to, going, coming. So we was able to do that in the 1960s. And they've advanced so fast now that it's pretty well known that it's some of our defense and offense is that we can confuse the enemy, any number of planes, that and make them disappear, just like what they're describing. So what we really think, some of us have talked about this, first of all, the video was leaked. Someone leaked the video, I'm pretty sure. Or it could have been leaked just as a little bit of ops to let the Russians wonder what we've got, Who knows what the game is. But anyway, it's I think that what they were doing, it was only one radar or one type of system that the Navy had that this showed up on. No one else has seen it. So we think that the possibility this was part of the testing that, like we did with Palladium. They were testing this the capability to this radar, and that's what they were seeing on it.
Okay,
I'm calling it radar, the system.
So they're testing this radar system, which I think was a newer system, and this is the phased array radar, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And they're testing it with what?
This is that's your question, is what are we using now? Because the only thing, my only question on it was, it appeared to lock onto whatever it was, and it kept it in the radar gate. It had a solid track. Instead of just seeing it pop up on a scope somewhere, it was actually like it was tracking a physical object. And that was confusing to me. How are we doing that? I don't know. But what research I've been able to do is we do have that capability to make it spoofing the radar where it does think it is physically locked onto something when it's really not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. I read this one quote where you said, talking about Palladium, that at one point a Russian MiG-15 pilot even claimed he could see the target he had a lock on.
He did. That's when we, kind of surprised us. We had to turned the system off right quick because we were afraid he'd seen the submarine. But he was picking. He said you could see something, and we don't know what. So that's what we're afraid of. Is the submarine was still in the hadn't dove yet. That released balloons, and he might have seen it.
So that's all this in those days. That's all we were doing to test their radar, was releasing these balloons.
We would release balloons off of the submarine, and the different side they had. I forget what we called them. But we had reflectors inside the balloon. Balloons were just a means of carrying this thing up. But we had these things were calibrated at different sizes. So we're seeing just how small do you have to get before the radar won't see you. So we had all these different sizes, and they're drifting out, and they kept a lock on it. We knew that they were still seeing that size of the return.
So it's released from the submarine from underwater. The balloon takes it to the surface, and then actually takes it up into the sky?
Yeah. It floats around up the sky. We releases several different sizes and stuff. And
it's just a helium balloon.
Yeah, exactly. The balloon was just a carrier.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting because, one of the parts of this whole Nimitz sighting is the pilot saying that he saw something that appeared to be just below the surface of the water, or was causing a disturbance of the water.
Yeah, that's right.
But he's also there. But how do we explain the supersonic speed that they're observing, where these things were going from 50,000?
That's something that they say they can do that now. With the sworn technology they got, now they can make the radar systems or whatever's looking at them thinking they want them to think, and they can actually make it disappear and then reappear over here. So maybe that's what they're doing. It's who knows what the capabilities we got now. But you do quite a bit of research on it. The Air Force and Navy both have been playing with this pretty, and a lot of it's done out of White Sands where you don't have a GPS interference and that sort of thing.
So that's more plausible to you than this is actual U.S. aircraft demonstrating some incredible new anti-gravity technology.
Yeah, I don't think we're tracking anything real. It's hard to say, but we're almost certain we don't have that. And we have to question, we're hearing where Russia got hypersonic crap missiles now and this sort of thing, 25,000 miles an hour, whatever. And you really have to question a lot of that because, like even with the A-12, he was our enemy. Running Mark 3, 2,200 mile an hour, faster than a bullet. We get up to 2,200 degree temperature in places. And that was what our limitation was. The engine would take us faster, but we didn't have any metals. Even though we used composites and we used titanium, that was our limitation, was the temperatures. So when they're talking about, and I was on X-15, and as it re-entered the atmosphere, it turned cherry red. So you can imagine, and it wasn't going near Mach 25, like the Russians are claiming to have. So what have they got that can withstand that kind of temperature? Mm-hmm. You're talking about 1,000 degrees.
Explain to us the best you can as to the swarm technology you're talking about and how it works and how this could have fooled not just the radar system, but these actual pilots.
Yeah, they got drone technology now where they release many number of ways, but mostly out of planes. And they're actually programmed. In fact, we saw some demonstrations of it just the last week or so where they had hundreds of drones up there and they formed different things like a plane or a ship. And they're programmed and you wouldn't have that many operators on them. But they got these things now where they can fly like a swarm of birds, or something. They just all follow each other. But they got drones now where they can actually release those things out of the back of a C-130, and then as you confuse the enemy, they don't have no idea how many planes are up there, or if there are planes at all. They can make them think anything they want to. And that's new technology that they're playing with now. And that's one of the things they've been doing at White Sands, because they want to get away where the drones are independent of GPS, where they are programmed where they can still work together without relying on GPS signals.
Mm-hmm. So going back to the Tic Tac, is it your belief that there was an actual object out there, or it's a, huh?
I think they were spook. I think Tic Tac they're spooking. I think it's a signal.
Spooky.
They're locked onto something that appears, really appears to be real. It's something that the radar thinks it's actually locked onto it.
Mm-hmm. And what about, would a human pilot think that he's actually seen the thing? Because I think, the commander, Fravor, said that he actually saw it with his own eyes.
I don't know about that. I don't know one way or the other on that. They shouldn't have been able to see it if it was electronically done.
Mm-hmm. But that is...
we don't know about. But I think it's something military that we're doing, Mm-hmm. But what's odd, though, is no one other than the pilots off the Nimitz, at my understanding, there's that one particular system is the only thing that's seeing this. No other radar, no one else is picking it up.
What about anti-gravity technology? Is that something that you've looked into, that you're aware that the military has been researching?
I just heard that of course they're working on everything, but I heard that one of the aerospace companies says that they've got a coffee table in its lobby that's anti-gravity.
It's just sitting there?
I don't know if this is true or not, but I heard this. So obviously we're working on anything like that. It's have been for years. But firsthand, I don't know of anything. But it's just rumors that you get.
So what about these U.S. Navy patents? Have you heard about these that were just issued? Let's see, in 2017. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay.
I didn't get you. Go ahead.
So this is something maybe we should have sent you before the interview to let you review, but it's these U.S. Navy patents that talk about a craft using an inertial mass reduction device. And these patents were actually issued in 2017 to the U.S. Navy.
I'm not familiar with that.
Let's start with patents in general and the government. I mean, when you were working there, was it common for you guys to invent something and then take it to the U.S. Patent Office?
Not us out at the area, but I'll give you a good example though. Is the engines was our big deal. Pratt and Whitney they went to design an engine that could do what the J58 did. I mean, they blew up one engine after another in Florida. Where they're working on them. But Dr. Bob Abernathy holds patents on just about everything on that engine. He was the designer of that engine. So your answer is yes. In the aerospace companies themselves, they were getting patents on what they were producing.
Mm-hmm. So this one it's got a really interesting start to this patent. I'll just read a little bit of it to you and just see if any of this rings a bell to stuff that you had heard about, because what they describe in this patent issued in 2017 is very similar to these Tic Tacs that these pilots believe that they encountered. So whether this is some big disinformation campaign or what, because it is a little odd that the Navy would file these patents publicly. They're not even under any type of protective seal.
Yeah, you have to wonder about a lot of this, because that's been part. And everybody, the Russians do the same thing when they announce they got this hypersonic cruise missile now. Who knows where you got it? And just go back to the reading for the U-2. The Russians claiming they had all these bombers and stuff. So we've always done it. We play games with each other, and we'll release something to make someone think that we got something that's that they don't have. They waste a lot of time and money. In fact, out at the area, the Russians would fly satellites over to see what we were doing there. And we always knew whether it was infrared or RF seeking or whatever, and knew what time we were going to be there. So we were mischievously, and we did it for out of boredom or anything else. But we'd take maybe some cardboard or something, make a shape of some exotic plane, put it out on a tarmac, and then as the satellites were coming over, we'd put a couple of shop heaters in the back, like the heat from an engine, and make them think that we had some kind of exotic plane sitting on the tarmac. And when we were flying the A-12s out of Cadena, when we was flying missions over Vietnam, the Russians had a trawler sitting right off the coast, and every time we would take off, they would radio with the Vietnam, here they come. Well, we only had 3 planes there, but we would change the serial numbers, or we'd put a little paint on one, or we made them think we had a whole fleet of planes when we only had 3. So that's common, playing games with each other to make each other waste your time and money trying to figure out if it's for real and that sort of thing. So it's very possible.
When you hear about these various UFO sightings that people report, is it your opinion that usually what they're seeing is some type of U.S. technology that is being tested?
Oh, what was report?
When you hear, can you hear me? Yeah.
Right.
When there's all these UFO sightings that people report. In your opinion, are they usually actually seeing some type of test of a new U.S. technology?
A lot of times they are. There's some sightings they've seen that it's not explained, and it could be anything. But it's like with the A-12 plane. That no one knew we had it. Even our own Air Force didn't know we had it, or our Navy initially. And we flew 2,850 missions out of Area 51 in this plane that's flying 17 miles high, which is many times what any other plane is supposed to be able to fly. And it's going faster than a bullet. And people would see it. And it was UFO. We weren't supposed to have anything like that. And So we caused a lot of UFO sightings ourselves, and this was a concern. We tried to not do that. And I'll give you an example with a U-2 plane. It was flying 13 miles up, and every now and then the sun hit it just right, and people would see a glimmer of sunlight off of it. And they saw a UFO, and we tried painting them. It was the first thing we tried. And the weight of the paint, we lost 1,500 feet of altitude just from the weight of the paint. And then we called a project we called Rainbow. We strung wires on that thing, piano wire and everything else, trying to confuse the radar signals and whatever. And everything we did, but first of all, we lost weight, and a lot of it actually increased the radar cross section rather than reduce it. But when we built the A-12, the CIA insisted that it be a stealth plane. And so the Blackbirds were about 90% stealth. But the other 10%, it shared 80,000 pounds of fuel. There's no way you can hide that much fuel from radar. It picked up that much mass. And then it got up to those temperatures. And infrared would pick that up like in a flash, you know. So we never were able to get truly stealth. But we learned enough. We did reduce the signature on it where it appeared to be a small plane like a Cessna.
So if this Tic Tac was in fact U.S. craft, which you don't particularly believe, but if it was, it's a secret that would have had to have been kept for well over 20 years now at this point. Does that, in your opinion, pass the smell test that we could keep something secret that long?
It's possible because it's like with our A-12s, we go back to the Blackbirds, we retired those in 1968, and we didn't declassify. We had them locked up in storage. No one knew about them until 1991.
And talk about the amount of money that's being poured into these projects. I mean, I heard one of our guests said $30 billion a year into black projects.
Yeah, probably more than that, because we had unvouchered financing. That's one thing the CIA did. We didn't have to count for our money. And that's how we was able to do a lot of black projects we did. And but there's no telling how much money going into it. And it's not all at Area 51. They're doing stuff at other places too. You know, it's the testing, depending on what they're doing. But
at $30 billion a year for going on 30 straight years or 40 years or whatever it's been, we got to have something very significant to show for that. So to me, it kind of makes sense that, oh, well, maybe the Tic Tac is what we have to show for that.
Yeah, and like, well, you know, like your Predator and your Reaper, all of those were black projects you start with. Your stealth helicopters, any of that kind of stuff is black project until they come out with it. So I bet we spent a lot more money than what you're talking about, but it had produced some. Then we did a lot of proof of concept vehicles, and we even called some of them platforms for like your Bird of Prey and your Taggart Blue, you know, declassified. We called it the Whale, but these would be proof of concept vehicles, never intended to fly operationally, but we built them to develop something like the B-2 bomber. The Whale, we call it, the Taggart Blue, it produced the B-2 bomber, and it also produced the stealth cruise missile. But we built a lot of stuff like that we flew out there. Really weird stuff, but it's just a proof of concept.
So if we can keep secrets for over 20 years, 30 years, it's no telling what our government has right now that we don't know about.
Absolutely no telling. You can't imagine. When I think back what we did with slide rules, remember we were doing stuff with slide rules in my day. And we built the A-12 is still the fastest and highest flying plane ever built, manned plane, and it probably always will be. But we built that with slide rules. Now with computers and stuff, no telling what we've been able to do.
So let me ask you to imagine a bit. What do you imagine the U.S. government may now have that we're only going to find out about sometime in the future?
I think we talk about the Russians developing hypersonic. I think we're planning hypersonic too. And however, we've really quit trying to go with fast planes. That's no longer popular. Try to high Mach plane. We go now with sensors. Let's build a smart plane. It doesn't have to be fast. Let's build something that you got the sensors on it where no one can tell where it's at or what it's doing or that sort of thing. So the F-22 is a good example. That is a magnificent plane. The F-35 is not, but the F-22 is.
And
the F-35, we just blew a lot of money on it.
So tell me exactly what this Russian hypersonic technology is that they're at least talking about.
They're claiming that they're going to launch it'll be an unmanned, like a cruise missile. It's Mach 25, which is, 7,000, 8,000 miles an hour or something. I don't know. It's a huge number.
And how does it achieve that?
We don't know. And we question whether he really got it or not.
But you imagine clearly the U.S. is also doing its own research and development when it comes to supersonic speeds, hypersonic speeds.
Yeah, we're not trying to do any manned plane. Unmanned is the thing of the future. It has been for a long time.
And anti-gravity is something you think for sure. We're also researching and developing.
I'm sure we're playing with that and different type of technology like that. But I don't know of anything offhand. It's just speculation on my part.
So if you were a betting man and you're in Vegas and you're betting on what these Tic Tacs actually are, you're betting that this is some type of faux reality that the government is able to create to fool the radar systems.
Yeah, I think it's for spoofing, and it's been leaked out. Is how we even know about it.
And it's not extraterrestrial.
No. I've never believed in extraterrestrial. That there's no reason. None of us that has worked in this really goes that route. Pretty sweet. You never see our nose prints on the windshields of airplanes looking for UFOs. We just don't do that.
So give us your observation about all these people that get all worked up about Area 51 and they want to storm Area 51 and they're hiding aliens there, et cetera. I mean, is this all just high comedy to you guys that work there?
It's just silly to say. Like I said, no one knew it was out there until 1979 and wondered what you've been doing. And someone came up with the idea, well, they got UFOs out there or got aliens out there. Their imagination ran wild. What have you been doing? Well, we were doing stealth and we were doing Soviet MiGs and that sort of thing is what we were doing. But imagination goes wild with that sort of thing.
So people in the Roadrunner community, which is this community of Area 51 people who had worked there, among that group, is there any among them that believe that we've actually been visited by extraterrestrial craft?
None. Zero. None of our pilots or any of our radar people, no.
You don't deny there could be extraterrestrial life out there, but no one believes we've been visited by it.
I don't think we've been visited by it. With the billions and billions of planets that's out there, we're talking, the universes. But, the thing about the nearest star to Earth is 3 trillion miles away. That's a long ways.
Yes, it is.
That's a near star.
Okay, last question before I'm going to hand this over to Michael, our producer, who has done many years of research into this kind of stuff. I want to let him ask a question too, if you'd like. But back to what this thing likely was. So it sounds like you're saying 0% extraterrestrial. I imagine you're giving some percentage likelihood that it could actually be a U.S. craft, right? What percent chance are you getting that versus it being just the radar jamming?
I think a good 7% that it is some kind of a spoofing craft. I don't, it could be little drones or who knows what it is. But that's the thing we're playing with now is swarm technology. Mm-hmm. Where you just use the enemy that don't know what to chase.
Mm-hmm. That leaves 30% that it is actually a U.S. gravity-defying craft?
Well, no, the other 30% would be strictly electronic.
Oh, come on. What I don't understand the difference. What's the difference between the spoofing and the electronic?
Well, I see the same thing, except that they might be using some actual physically little drones or something, because they do have those now where they can release a swarm of those things, and they just do magic.
Yeah, but those that they've been reporting in Colorado and Nebraska, et cetera, they're not, zipping around at 24,000 miles an hour like this thing is.
I don't know what those are either. I wonder about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So what? So are you giving me any percentage on it being a gravity-defying U.S. craft?
No percentage on that.
Can't hear me?
No.
I think he's intentionally saying he can't hear me. You just don't want to answer my question.
Now I heard that. I get your question.
Very last wrap-up question, just to put a bow on it. In all things that you've heard about, read about, seen, experienced, et cetera, the idea of a tic-tac shaped object that's about 46 feet long, is that ring a bell to you at all? Is anything that could be, or something that you've seen or heard about or worked on?
You say the tic-tacs?
Shaped object.
No, I haven't seen anything like that, no. Mm-hmm. No, I'd just be speculating on that.
Yeah. Thank you again to TD Barnes for coming on the show. You can access more information about TD Barnes by going to td-barnes.com. That's td-barnes.com. You can see all the articles that he's written and the various books that he has written. Thank you again to our producer, Michael Parker. We'll be back next week with another episode of The Hidden Truth Show.
Thank you for listening to The Hidden Truth Show with Jim Breslow. You can find us at hiddentruthshow.com. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Hidden Truth Show. Join us again next week for another episode of Hidden Truth Show with Jim Breslow.